Paper deer, how the magic eraser has eroded the deer experience in Minnesota. The DNR uses a model to estimate herd size, and all models rely on legitimate inputs for accuracy. Instead of seeking additional legitimate inputs, our DNR has taken to modifying baseline model data to lower the herd farther than publicly announced. All accountability is eliminated when numbers are allowed to be constantly modified, and you won't need a degree in wildlife biology or population modeling to understand what I'm going to present today. In 2005 to 2007, the DNR held stakeholder meetings. At the conclusion of those meetings, the herd of Minnesota was scheduled for a 9% reduction. DNR reports to the QDMA's 2015 whitetail report show that in 2013 we had indeed hit that 9% reduction. So in 2003 we had 1.1 million deer, 2013 we had 1.004, and again in 2014 the DNR estimated 1 million deer were in the state of Minnesota. So the model says the deer herd has been reduced by the 9% agreed to from those meetings. Primary herd indicator input for the DNR's model is buck harvest. If buck harvest goes up, the herd is climbing. If buck harvest goes down, the herd is shrinking. Buck harvest is down 42% in the past 10 years. That's a far cry from a 9% reduction of the herd. Hunter satisfaction is another measure of the herd size, whether it's growing or shrinking. In 2005, the last time the hunters of central Minnesota were surveyed, 60+% were satisfied with the number of deer in the woods. In 2014, that has shrunk to 19%. So it's your turn to do the math. The DNR model says the herd is down 9%. But the buck harvest, the primary indicator of herd size, is down 42%. The hunters that are satisfied with the number of deer in the woods have dropped from 60% to 20%. And there's many other indices that show that the herd has shrunk much farther than the 9% the model suggests. Public input meetings are all dominated by hunters complaining. There is nobody showing up saying there's too many deer. We have Department of Public Safety numbers with deer vehicle collisions down 50%. Pope and Young entries are down over 50%. Boone and Crockett entries are off over 75%. Archery shops are closing like crazy. Every data set that you can possibly mine disagrees with the model. So how does the model show a 9% herd decrease when everything else shows it down much farther? Time to enter data manipulation, or what I like to call the magic eraser. Baseline manipulation of the magic eraser is used to change numbers that don't match the model. Constant manipulation of baseline data renders our current goal-setting process meaningless. It's all about paper deer with the magic eraser. Here's one example I pulled off a form. I'm not the only guy doing this. Permit area 178 in 2007 had about 26 deer per square mile. But you pull a different report after they manipulate the numbers, you got 17 deer per square mile. Now keep in mind, when you change the herd size from the estimated herd size from 26 to 17, you're not changing the percent reduction that zone was scheduled for. You compare the graphics to the modified DNR reports, you have huge losses of paper deer. Here's a spreadsheet from some of the zones I'm covering in the stakeholder teams in central and east central Minnesota this year that shows further examples of this. Zone 156, 15% hunter satisfaction now. The original estimate that they used to project the new goals was 23. They later changed that to 15. 157, the original was 23. They changed that to 22. Now they estimate the herd's at 14 there. Zone 159 had 21 deer. They changed that to 19. Now the herd's at 14 there. And down at zone 183, the original herd estimate was 25. They've changed that original estimate to 13 and still gone ahead with a 10% scheduled decrease to that original number to put them at a goal of 12. So zone 183 originally told them they had 25 deer. They scheduled a 10% decrease. They're now at 12, which is at goal. 12 is past 50%. That's not a 10% reduction. That's the magic eraser. That's baseline data manipulation at its finest that eliminates paper deer, and it's where the deer in Minnesota have gone. So if we take the eraser and we extrapolate it over the state, in 2005, the DNR estimated we had 850,000 deer pre-fawn in the state of Minnesota. This number was later revised without informing anybody to 660,000 deer. That's almost a 25% reduction of paper deer from the numbers that we were told we were going to work off of. Now, the DNR's practice to go back in time and revise herd estimates may be appropriate with legitimate data, but the way it has been used in Minnesota is causing serious issues. Baseline manipulation is not over yet. The stakeholder meetings that are going on right now across Minnesota will be doing increases, percentage increases and decreases to a number that has not been given to us yet. And the DNR can make that number any number they want so that the increases and decreases match where they want the herd. It's going to happen. So as a basic summary, the DNR acknowledges no modeling issues. They stand behind that model and a 9% herd reduction, while in the past decade, Minnesota has gone through the third largest harvest decline nationwide. There's only 2 states that have seen the harvest drop farther than Minnesota has. Most indicators suggest the herd reductions are 3 to 5 times greater than what were scheduled and announced to the public in 2005 to 2007, and this issue is not Minnesota specific. I'm going to assert that the Minnesota DNR made a conscious decision to lower the deer herd, and the model was used as a tool to hide the agenda to lower the herd. Baseline data manipulation allowed and continues to allow the DNR to shrink the herd while using agreed to percentage goals as a disguise when presenting data. They can always say the public asked for a 10% decrease or a 10% increase. They change the data that goes into that, and they're not lying, but they are abusing the model and abusing the deer herd. Allowing the DNR to constantly alter numbers destroys all credibility moving forward in the stakeholder process. It makes the proceedings that are going on right now not legitimate. Modest increases will not raise satisfaction levels in Minnesota. If we raised the buck harvest 50%, in the state of Minnesota, which means we raised the deer herd 50% in Minnesota, we still wouldn't get back to the number of deer that we were told we were going to have at the conclusion of the 2007 meetings. So even though a 50% increase wouldn't get us there, we're going to be doing 10 and 25% increases to the herd. We're still going to be at a fraction of what we agreed to in 2007. And at these new deer densities, the broad brush that the DNR uses does not function. Hot and cold pockets continue to grow. That's where your declining hunter satisfaction is coming from. Legislative intervention is required for long-term change. Because the DNR acknowledges no problems, they're not going to change anything. They've readily admitted that. The people that sit on this committee are the ones that are going to have to make this happen. You guys are going to have to do something to change this, because the DNR is not going to change the sad state of deer hunting in Minnesota. Our current herd monitoring tools are of very little value. Ground surveys show the herd up 80% in the past 8 years. There's just no way that's happened. Aerial surveys are very expensive, and they often don't match the model. And our aerial surveys are not completed with enough frequency to be of value. 60-some zones function best with aerial recalibration every 4 to 5 years. We're on pace to fly every 10 to 12 years, and some zones have never been flown. This is the double check that's in place to check the model, and we're not using it. Here's that ground survey data. You take 2005, 6, 7, compare it to 12, 13, 14. Your ground surveys that the DNR uses would estimate the herd is up about 80% in the last 8 years. Not even close to a reality. Here's your aerial survey inputs, and I chose zone 346, the most flown zone in the state of Minnesota. We flew it 3 times in the last 10 years. The model thought we'd have 16. Helicopter went up and found 35 on the 3rd aerial count in 10 years. The model and the aerial survey puts are not agreeing. We need more herd monitoring tools. The ones we have are not functioning. This is some more data that you can go through on your own. I have all the notes in here. I'm going to run out of time, but 2007 pre-fawn estimates for zone 225 told the stakeholders we had 25. Flew it that same year. The helicopter said we had 8. Magic Eraser came out and changed it to 15, but it didn't change it to 15 until after the stakeholders were told we were going for a 25% reduction of 25. Now we're going for a 25% reduction of 15. That's a lot less pay per deer, and it's a lot less deer out in the field. Here is some goal sets I got for the zone that I hunt. 4 different DNR employees gave me 4 different goals in a 2-year period. These numbers are constantly in flux, and it robs the system of credibility and accountability. Here's the zone I hunt. When you apply the model to the 3 zones that I hunt, it shows the deer herd is up 8% in the past 10 years, yet hunter satisfaction has gone from 60% to 25%. So either the model's wrong and the herd's not climbing those zones, or our hunters are demanding a ton more deer in the woods, and I got my guess as to which one it is. The model is lonely. Shows the herd at goal, shows us achieving that 9% reduction. You can't find a data set to agree with the model, not one. Here's your public safety figures that a lot of people like to dispute, but they align with everything else. Deer vehicle collisions in the state of Minnesota are down over 50% now in the past 10 years. Deer, you can't ignore the economic impact of deer. $1.3 billion into the economy. Without the deer, that money's not there. And if you don't believe it, just ask the resort owners on Lake Mille Lacs. reference pheasant and duck hunter numbers. When the game disappears, the hunters disappear with them. So the key points are, baseline manipulation of data has allowed the DNR to lower deer numbers further than announced while sticking to agreed to goals on paper. Allowing the DNR to constantly alter numbers destroys all credibility moving forward with the stakeholder process. This year, stakeholder teams are going to be recommending increases to deer per square mile estimates that won't be announced until the meeting starts. And I can assure you, based on what I've seen, our DNR knows the end result of the process, and we're not going to recover anywhere near the number of animals that were secretly taken from us in the past 8 years. This shroud of secrecy and lack of transparency has thousands of signatures requesting change. Again, 50% gains to the deer herd would not get us back to the goals agreed to in 2005, 2007. The DNR has no plans for change. If you people on this committee don't do something to fix the deer situation, nothing's going to happen.